wonderful Thursday. This is your host, Mae Renfroe. And today I'm honored to have my guest, Patricia Doucet, on with me. So just welcome to this episode. Patricia, how are you today?
Great. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. Yeah, and that you're going to be talking to us about how God takes our broken pieces in our lives and puts them back together again. Um, Yeah, and Patricia is committed to inspiring women to pursue their God-given dreams and desires when they face detours and disappointments in life. With her profound empathy for women struggling with tough relational circumstances, she inspires them to confront their own challenges as they bravely journey towards restoration. And sharing, you're sharing what you've been through. So yeah, I'm excited about you sharing more about that today for us. And um, you can introduce yourself some more. Whatever I've kind of missed that you want us to know that um, yeah, so it'd be helpful.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'd just like to say that in life, not too long ago, I was having a little conversation with the Lord in my prayer time. And I was wondering about how in life we get to be so broken sometimes and how life doesn't go the way we had wanted it to do. And, we have to make adjustments along the way because things just don't always turn out the way we want them to.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of roll with the punches. And I realized that a lot of times it's because of our personal decisions, our personal mistakes, mishaps, whatever have you. But a lot of times it's because of the relationships we're in, how we interact in relationships, and because of other people in our lives. You probably heard of somebody said a quote one time: "Life would be great if it weren't for other people." Well, the truth
Oh,
is, we don't
okay.
live life as an island
Ah,
alone, and we
yeah,
wouldn't. We wouldn't
yeah.
want to. We were made for community. We were
Mm-hmm.
made for communication with others. And that's all great. But sometimes that's where some of the problems come in because
Mm-hmm.
relationships are not always what they should be because we live in an imperfect world. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to jump in with something that happened when I was 61, and then I can give a little bit of the backstory. And I hope
Okay.
this will encourage some of you that have found yourself in a very broken place in life. I came to my midlife years as a woman that felt shattered and fractured as like a broken doll on the floor in many little pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember envisioning myself as a broken glass doll on the floor, and the pieces were sharp, they were jagged. And I looked, you know, visualized this, and I said to myself, I can never put myself back together this time. I'm too broken. I'm too fractured.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened just a few days after that, still feeling very, very broken. I had just come through a second divorce. I was moving into my mother's basement at 61 years old, feeling like a colossal failure. I was estranged from my children. My mother took me in. She didn't understand, of course. I was just without a husband, without a home, without finances, without any kind of support. And I moved into my mother's basement with everything. What I did have was in storage in two or three different places. And I couldn't find my suitcases even, and I had plastic grocery.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
remember thinking, how did I get to this place? A few days later, after envisioning myself as a glass doll on the floor, broken, and having moved into her place, I guess it wasn't a few days later, it was a few weeks later. It was on Boxing Day, and I was out driving. I had a very tough day. That Boxing Day just came through Christmas. That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
the way Christmas was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Driving,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking for an embankment to drive over. I was going to drive over. I was 61 years old, and I said, Lord, I have done everything I know to do to please you, to please others, to be the best person I know how to be, and it's just not working out. I can't do this anymore.
Wow.
So I wanted to drive over. I couldn't find any space that didn't have a guardrail. And I pulled up and began to do the ugly cry on the steering wheel. Just put my head down on the steering wheel, cried and cried and cried. And I thought, well, before I take my life, maybe I should reach out to a suicide hotline because you always hear about that. So I
Mhm, mhm,
and the lady that answered said, "Hello, please hold." Well, I held. I didn't know that was supposed to happen for what seemed like an eternity, but it was probably only 2 or 3 minutes. And I hung up and said, God, see, you really don't care about me. I reached
mhm,
out for help and nobody cares. Well, eventually I found myself that night into the outpatients of the local hospital. Not sure how I got
mhm.
there after driving
Oh,
for hours and hours. And I
mhm,
walked in with eyes swollen, crying, and just a mess. And I went into the outpatient, still crying. And a young doctor came out, and I felt a shame of embarrassment wash over me. And I
mhm,
explained to him what had happened that day. He said, Ma'am, if I were going through that, I'd be crying too.
mhm,
I'm going to do you a favor and put you in the hospital for the night. They put me in the mental health wing, and I stayed there overnight. And when I got into the room, I was never so glad to see a bed. Now I could have went back to my mother's that night, but I just couldn't face her.
mhm,
Um, I just needed to be alone. Well, I had a real, um, I poured my heart out to God that night in the hospital. I said,
mhm,
God, how did I get here?
mhm,
That question wouldn't be answered for several months. But I did look in the room, it was sterile, and I noticed there was a tin foil mirror on the wall. And I said, God, I'm somewhere with a tin foil mirror. How did this happen? Well, I did get out. Several months later, I went to Florida to visit some friends.
mhm,
I sat on the beach and I began to journal and journal and journal. And that question that I asked back in the hospital, I felt the answer come to me. And I began to look over my life and to see how I had gotten to that place. And I began to make a list of what was everybody else's fault, what was my fault. And you see, I had been
mhm,
blaming so many people.
mhm,
And in life, we can blame others for where we end up. But there comes a time when we have to take some responsibility and look at the part we played into where we end up in life. So I
mhm,
began to do that. I made several lists and I just began to feel the Lord speaking to me in my heart. I cried out to him and said, I've done this, I did that. And I'd hear him say, yes, but this. And I think, yeah, that, yeah. It was a light bulb moment. You see,
mhm,
I grew up in church, Sunday school, swing. I remember sitting on the little pew, swinging my little legs, loving
mhm,
Jesus with all my heart. I knew
mhm,
Jesus me as a child.
mhm,
But I didn't feel like he liked me very much as I grew up. My parents were Christians, was in church several times during the week, summer camp. Church was my life. I
mhm,
grew up keeping all the rules, if you're a Christian, you don't do this and you don't do that. And so I became a people pleaser. And I learned early on that I really wasn't celebrated as a baby. Let's put it that way. So I felt very unloved and unwanted throughout my teenage years, but I kept all the rules. But finally, when I was 18 years old, I just said, you know what? I went away for the summer and I just did some things, that we weren't allowed to do. I went with some friends to a bar and I left one night by myself at 1 o'clock. I didn't want to be there and I was getting kind of scared and I just didn't want to be there. So I was in a city in Quebec. I was in Quebec City, actually.
okay.
1 o'clock in the morning, I was going across a parking lot back to my dorm where I was staying. I was taking French that summer. And, a van full of young men, teenagers my age, pulled up alongside of me, and they had the side door open, and there was a makeshift bed in there, and there were several of them in there, and I could smell what I think now,
Mhm,
drugs. And I was
mhm,
and the parking lot had big lights, so in any direction I would have gone, I couldn't have gotten any help. I was alone in the middle of a cement parking lot with big lights. So I began to pray like I never prayed before in my life. I said, God, if you will help them go away, I will give you my life. I will go anywhere you want me to go. Just save me, make them go away. And they kept saying, you want to ride? You want to ride, sweetie pie? You know, the way they go on. Hop in, we'll give you a ride. All of a
Mhm.
sudden, I kept on walking and praying. I just glanced, kept on walking. And my palms are sweaty just remembering it now. It's many years.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, one of them said, oh, let's get out of here. Boom. And they just took off like that. And I often thought of that over the years, and I wondered if they saw an angel or saw something that I didn't see, because all of a sudden they saw something or felt something
Ah,
that scared them and they took off because I asked the Lord to be with me. So I
wow.
don't know. And they took off. So I came
Wow.
home from there determined to spend the rest of my life serving.
Mhm. Mhm.
There were many ups and downs. I went to Bible college after that for 3 years and graduated.
Mhm.
And my
Oh,
dad
wow.
be a pastor, and he never
Yeah.
did. And my brother became a pastor. My sister and I, we all went to Bible college.
Mhm.
And I was in the ministry most of my life as a
Mhm.
volunteer for most of it. So my life
Mhm.
was, I got married at 25, had 3 children, and the marriage wasn't the best. But I believe that when you married for life, and it after 30 years. So during that time, I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression because I just couldn't say no to anybody. I was a people pleaser because I felt God didn't like me very much.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
He loved me because that's what God does. He loves us. And I
Mhm.
knew He'd take me to heaven, but I just felt less than, rejected, not good enough. I could never please enough people. I had so many plates in the air, so much going on, and I just didn't think God liked me. So I life looked good from the curb, but it was anything but. And I had cancer 3 times during those years, thyroid cancer, had my thyroid removed. And I got over that, and that marriage ended in divorce.
Mhm.
So that was not good. No divorce is good.
Mhm.
God
Mhm.
still loves us, and we live in an imperfect world. And yes, marriage is supposed to last for life, but He loves us more than He loves the marriage institution, I always say. It's not the best. He hates divorce, but He hates
Mhm.
what it does to us, and
Mhm.
he hates bad marriage too. Let's put it that
Mhm.
way.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Then I went too
Mhm.
into another marriage. I married a pastor.
Mhm.
I saw red flags, and I knew
Mhm.
I didn't feel I just felt so glad that somebody loved me, somebody noticed me. It was in a
Mhm.
vulnerable stage of my life, married too quick. Was a pastor's wife for 2 years. That part of it was great, but that ended in divorce, and
Mhm.
that's when I moved into my mother's basement.
Okay.
That
Oh.
brought me to that place of brokenness, of wanting to take my life and drive over the
Mhm.
side of the road.
Mhm.
So now I'm back on the beach making that list. That was just a little backstory. And as I was making the list on the beach, I thought, a lot of where I ended up was because of my decision, my
Mhm.
lack of trusting God and believing Him that He loved me. I set myself up to get into situations. I self sabotaged, made wrong decisions because I just didn't trust God that He loved me. And so now, that's several years ago now, I remarried a wonderful man. The Lord sent me uh, an angel. When I was in my mother's basement, I came back after the beach and I said, Lord, if you give me one more crack at marriage, just one more crack at marriage, because I messed up so bad, or somebody messed up. But
Uh-huh.
give me my own home again so I don't have to live in my mother's basement with my clothes in
Mhm.
plastic grocery bags. Um, could you heal my relationship with my 3 adult children? Because, of course, they were hurting.
Mhm.
Divorce hurts. so many ways, brokenness. And little by little, things turned around. He gave me my own home, wonderful husband, another vehicle, a healed relationship with my children, which I'm
Mhm.
so happy
Oh,
about.
wow.
And now I want to be the person that can help women that feel so broken.
Mhm.
And what I've learned a lot. I've learned that um, we can grow up with a faulty sense of who we are. And the reason why our relationships are in such a mess
Mhm.
sometimes because our identity is in a mess. We don't really know who we are.
Mhm.
So we allow ourselves to be in situations and put up with things we
Mhm.
shouldn't put up with. And sometimes we give out things we shouldn't give out. So it works both
Mhm.
ways. If we know who we truly are, we'll be wiser in our relationships. We won't settle for and say, well, this is all I deserve, or this is
Mhm. Mhm.
deserves, however you want to look at it. So I think that a lot of our brokenness comes from our broken identity, and that carries over into our relationships, whether it's a spouse, a
Mhm.
parent, a sibling, a child, a neighbor, a coworker. When we have a broken identity, all of our relationships suffer. That's what I've learned. So if we know who we are in
Wow,
Christ
yeah.
and that we are His beloved daughter, then that shows up in our relationships. So now I encourage women to know who they are, to know they're a beloved
Yeah.
daughter, and to give
Oh,
Him.
wow.
I picked up symbolically picked up those sharp broken pieces of glass on the floor of that doll I saw. I brought them to Jesus, and I said, Jesus, here's this broken piece. Here's this broken piece. This is a real mess. Can you do something with these broken pieces of my life? And just like the jar in the Japanese pottery that's more beautiful together because of the
Yeah.
gold etching,
Yeah. Yeah.
He does His best work when we say, Lord, I can't do it anymore. So I was
Mhm.
completely broken at the bottom, and I said, I can't do it anymore. Will you
Mhm.
help me one step at a time? And He did, one step at a time.
Mhm.
Life isn't perfect. It won't be till we get to heaven, but it sure is a lot better. If you had seen me a few
Mhm.
years ago, I wouldn't be smiling. You wouldn't have recognized
Mhm.
me. But I smile
Wow.
today because of what God did.
Yeah.
The way He restored relationships, the way He restored my sense of self, and the way I even see other people.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Said how wow, you're just a living example of what God can do and taking those broken pieces, those shattered
Mhm.
pieces
Yeah,
and putting them back together and making
yeah.
more more beautiful thing than, stronger, better than what it was. And something you just said just prior to that is knowing who you are and knowing your identity in Christ. It sounds like really finding your fulfillment in Him sounds
Mhm.
really important, right? So, I mean, would you recommend, I mean, young women even that are looking for a relationship and can't wait for God to send the right guy, kind of like I have a daughter that's just waiting, but I'm like, they need to really find their fulfillment, right? In God first, and that need to be so, right, satisfied or just fulfilled in Him. And yes, God does desire us to have someone. That longing is natural and okay, right? But
Yeah.
how do you really kind of help women to see the importance
But
of having God
women
first.
yes, sorry. If I were to talk to young women, I'd say,
Mhm.
know who you are, be.
Mhm.
And 3 things, communication is key. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume somebody is who they say they are. Um, how do they live? Look at how they live. And the same goes for men, looking at the
Yeah.
girlfriend.
Oh,
It
yeah.
works both ways, it's not
Yeah.
just for young guys too. I have 2 sons, right? And a
Yeah.
daughter.
Yeah.
So it works both ways, but don't go by the actions and go by your gut feeling. If there are red flags, pay attention. Pay
Yeah.
attention. Don't well, it'll be okay once we get married because
Yeah.
whatever is good about the dating relationship will be better when you're married. Whatever's bad about the dating relationship will be worse after you're married.
Wow.
I say.
Okay. I hope everybody can hear that. That is so important.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So I have written a couple books. So in this my life, I I just entitled my ministry or my business, whatever it is. I don't like the word business, but mentorship. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I like to
Okay.
mentor women, and I've written a couple books. One of them is I found myself on Facebook Live a year or two ago doing some coffee chats,
Oh,
encouraging.
okay.
So this one is called
Yeah.
Coffee Chats 30 Restorative Devotions for a Broken to Beloved Journey. The journey
Oh,
from your
wow.
identity of brokenness to your identity of knowing you are loved. When God
Yeah.
sees, He looks beyond our brokenness and sees who we are. The
Wow.
second,
That does sound good.
it's Coffee Chats, 30 reflective devotions for the marvelous middle years, because I'm beyond my middle years now, but some humor in here, some
Okay.
reflect on
Yeah.
maturity as a
Okay.
woman and how we can help others. A few other books in the works, but that,
Okay. Well, can I
yeah.
ask about, okay, the second one you mentioned that was for more midlife. Okay.
Yeah,
So would you say the other one is geared more for younger women or for all ages? So what do
all
you?
this one, all for anybody that feels life has thrown them to the curb.
Yeah.
Life has
Okay.
really
So
beat up on.
young women could relate to this too.
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for sure, yeah,
Okay, that's nice to know because I can definitely, so I can mention it. It's nice to have resources because I mean, I come across,
yeah.
women that are going through things and struggling, and just where you really feel is like, kind of wish you had something to offer. Like, what could really kind of touch, reach them, And it's
Trying to
okay.
write something that would have helped me when
Yeah,
I was broken, smashed in many pieces,
yeah.
like nothing seemed to fit.
Oh wow.
So I
Yeah.
hopefully they will help.
Yeah, it sounds like. Oh, I'll have to look this up myself. And yeah, you got more in the works. You think so more books God's kind of planted on your heart, or
One will come out, and yeah, I'm a late bloomer. I'm starting to do all the things, that I really
never
want
too
to.
late.
Never too
Yeah.
late. Never too late.
No.
God created you to be. Start where you are and
Yeah.
do what you know to do, what he brings you to do. Do it with all your heart, with all
Yeah.
your and everything you've been through prepares you for today.
Oh
Nothing's
wow. Yeah.
so all of it prepares you for today. And when
Oh,
you
I
go through
like that. That's good.
things, it gives you empathy for other people. You just can't
Yeah.
stand to see anybody
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put out in the spring is coffee chats, because that's what the devotions
Okay.
are.
Yeah.
30 devotions, reassuring devotions for a mother's heart, to
Oh,
reassure
okay.
um,
Oh
as they're
wow.
raising their children, and have, if they have raised their children, to give them comfort if things aren't going the way they think they should go, that the Lord sees them on their journey as well. And so that's the next one I'm working on.
Oh
It's fun.
wow. So is that your winter project, and by spring you'll be done? So
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow, that's nice. Um, yeah, so you got the speaking ministry. So how does, like, what all does your ministry kind of do envelop when it says your ministry called Beyond Broken?
But beyond
Kinda how,
broken.
how all does that look like then?
Well, when I speak, I just encourage women to start where they are, use all the pieces, bring it all to the Lord, and say, "What do you want me to do with this? The good
Hmm.
parts, not so good parts,"
Hmm.
and He'll take us
Hmm.
where we are. So I encourage women. I speak. One of them I speak on marvelous midlife. So anybody that
Hmm.
needs a speaker for people in their midlife. The other one
Okay.
about the sound of my voice with my cancer uh, surgery. And I should mention that too, if I can take a minute.
Oh
If you have,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
when I was going through my third and final cancer surgery, which was a radical neck, before I
Mm.
went out, the doctor said, "When you wake up, you may not have a voice, because sometimes
Oh.
intricate here, we
Hmm.
might not have a
Hmm.
voice."
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when I came out of the surgery, I begged God. I said, "God, if you will let me have my voice again, I promise I will use it for good." And when I was going through my hard time, and when I sat on the beach, I remember saying, Lord, I told you I'd use my voice for good. Is it too late? Can I still use my voice for good? And so that's why I do come on podcasts, and why I do,
Mhm.
because I promised him I'd use my voice for good to encourage other women. So on my website, I try to encourage as much as I can. And right now, I put up 7 um, devotions, Christmas devotions for a peaceful Christmas season. So
Mm.
we have, because Christmas is very often a tumultuous time for women with children,
Mhm.
as you know, it can
Mhm.
be crazy. Well, we want the peace that Jesus came to give us for Christmas, and how we can find that peace. So I put 7 Christmas devotions, which if anybody goes to my website, they can have it for free. So that's what I've done for those who want it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. It's definitely just the holiday seasons can be hard for those that have gone through stuff
Oh, yeah.
and everything. So
Oh,
yeah,
it's the hardest.
yeah,
Christmas just accentuates anything that's wrong in a family or personally in your life, is magnified during the holidays, it seems. So that's when we really need that peace that Jesus came to give us.
yeah, yeah. He is
Yeah.
the Prince of Peace. He is peace, and yeah, it's like in Isaiah 26:3. You keep your minds on Jesus, and He could keep you in
Mhm.
perfect peace. Also, keep your
Yeah.
minds on Him.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
Verse that, speaking of the Bible, a verse that was meant so much to me was Psalm 34 and 18. He is near to the brokenhearted, and he rescues those who are crushed in
Yeah,
spirit. And I just held on to that because he's always there for us.
yeah,
You're never too far away. You've
yeah.
never done wrong. You're never too broken. And he'll always love you no matter what.
Oh, wow. I love that. You say that. I think there's many that need to hear that because they can be in that place that feel maybe they've just either done too much that they feel like, or just too hurt to be fixed. But that's where He does His work, right? He says He's
Oh,
near to those of a contrite spirit,
yeah.
or He's close to those of the
Broken spirit or
broken
broken heart.
spirit.
He's so
Yeah, yeah, the
broken.
broken heart. He meant those. Yeah, yeah,
Well, it depends on what translation you're looking at, right? I think we've got a couple
yeah.
translations going here.
Yeah, the King James, like, go to mostly, and so,
Right.
yeah, it's a little bit different than
Yeah.
the other one, but, especially those that are seeking him, diligently seeking him. I've mentioned on a few for other podcast recently, we've talked about similar kind of things like that, and it's like when we diligently seek God, it says that He will be found, of us, and,
Yeah. That's
He desires that repentance to come to Him,
so very true.
yeah.
Mhm.
And that He is near, and He's just a God of restoration and redemption. And like you shared in your story, your journey, I like that, and what you're doing to help others. Yeah,
It's exciting. It's
it's
really
so
exciting.
cool.
In
It's
this
neat.
world
Yeah,
today, a lot of hurt, a lot of
yeah,
hurting people, but
yeah,
is, I guess, for hurting women, but people in general, of course.
yeah, yeah. There's things that we wouldn't want to have to go through if we had the ideal life, but we don't live in an ideal world, and everyone is not perfect, we included. Like when you first started talking, you kind of said that we would. What do you say? We'd get along fine if there was no one else, right? Because we get along with ourselves, we're good. But
Yeah, life would
then
be great
suddenly,
for the other
but
people, but the problem is life is about interactions with other people.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's why I kind of talk about personal brokenness, yes, but relational brokenness too. And sometimes it's their fault, but sometimes it's our fault. And usually it's a combination of both.
it's a little of both, and then not willing to give in, or I mean, like admit that we're wrong, like admit that I'm sorry that, and I need uh to make the changes and ask God to help us to
Right.
change.
Say
What were you
one
gonna
more,
say?
except in cases of abuse, you can't say
Okay.
that um, it is all one's person's fault if it's abuse. People always say, well, there's two sides to every story. Like it's like a piece of paper. There's two sides.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
there are two sides to every story, but in cases of abuse, it's altogether different. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
It's,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It makes a big difference. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I've just loved what all you've shared here with us. So, kind of, are there any thing else that we neglected to, to share to talk about that you really want to put
Well,
out there for women that's struggling going through this?
I first of all want to thank you for the opportunity, May, to come on here and share. And for anybody listening, um, don't be afraid. God knows anyway. Come to God
Mhm.
just raw and real and genuine and give Him
Wow.
all of it. Don't try to be
Yeah.
religious and just pray with whatever. He doesn't like religion. He wants your heart. He wants who you
Okay.
are. Come to Him and say, Lord, somebody messed up. I messed up. Things are not the way they should be. I give you these sharp, jagged pieces. Can you do anything with this mess? Or if you don't feel like you're in a mess, just give them what's wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Few of us have it all together. Few
Yeah.
of us.
A very few. I don't know if
Oh,
anyone has
he's-
it
And
all together.
ask for he'll give you his peace, and he won't
Mhm.
fix it all at once. It'll be one step at a time, but just say,
Mhm.
"Lord, give me one step at a time. What do I do next? Then what do I
Mhm.
do next?" Hold his hand
Mhm.
symbolically, read the word, pray, talk to him, and take it easy on yourself as you're
Mhm.
putting yourself back together. Don't expect more of yourself, because when you when you have broken relationships or estrangements with family, it's a loss of what you
Mhm.
hoped would be. Nobody gets married expecting to have a divorce. Nobody
Mhm.
wants
Mhm.
family arrangements, especially with
Mhm.
Christmas coming. Don't have your expectations too high, because not everybody sees things the way we see it. And if things don't turn out the way we want them to, let's not take it personal. Just things like that.
Mhm. Oh, that's really
Hang on,
good. I'm sorry, what was the last thing you said?
hang on to Jesus.
Hang on to
Talk,
Jesus. Yeah,
yeah,
that's good. That's
yeah.
good. We got to do our, we're hope. We cling to Jesus. He's holding on to us, right?
Oh,
What
yes,
do we,
yes.
yeah,
We,
he's holding on to us.
we shouldn't let go of his hand.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the problem that we can be. We're the ones that pull away, right? We're the ones that let go
Yep.
of hands, so to speak. He's there 22, and he's calling us to himself, and inviting us to be his child and to come to him with all our problems. But we're the ones that maybe we're trying to figure it out on our own or letting go. But
Yeah.
when we surrender, and like you
Just
said, kind of one thing at a time. Hmm.
sometimes we want to fix it all yesterday. It's not, God's never in a hurry. It's on
Hmm.
his time frame. He does it in
Yeah,
his
yeah,
I put my pieces of life back together a lot sooner than this, but God knew the right timing,
yeah,
and need to trust him. Just as
yeah,
a father takes his child's hand and says, "Trust me, I know where we're going." The child just knows, I don't know where we're going, but daddy does. So I'm just going to go with him. And that's the way it is with following Jesus.
yeah. Takes trust. Yeah,
Hmm.
and faith. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for everything you shared. Lots of wisdom. And then I just love your story and what God's done in your life. And you can see that peace in your life, peace and joy that radiates and it's just driving you forward to help others. So thank you
Okay.
again. And yeah, hope
And I
everybody
just
else has a good week.
forgot to tell them, sorry, my website, if they want those
Oh,
7
yeah.
Christmas devotions, it's just my
Okay.
name, patriciajducet.com, and I'd be happy
Okay.
to get those, Christmas devotions. So thanks again, May, for having me. It's been a
Yeah.
joy here and to chat with you.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. And I'll put all of these things, links and stuff in the description too. So,
Okay.
okay.
God
Okay. All
bless
the best.
you. Okay,
Take
bye-bye.
care. Bye.